What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the after credit scene. We are talking all things The Marvels. If you haven't seen the movie yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and then come back later. We're going to do a little bit of a spoiler-free review right here, but then we're going to get into some spoilery stuff. Check the description below for some timestamps if you want to skip to the Easter eggs, if you want to skip to the spoiler review, do whatever you want to do there. But like the channel, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. First off, spoiler-free review. I really liked this movie. I went into it with very low expectations. I will admit I did not realize it until I saw this movie, but I have been a little bit susceptible to all the Marvel hate that's been out there from some of these critics. Marvel's dying, the MCU is in trouble, blah, 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 blah. Finding ways to knock Guardians 3, finding ways to knock Thor, Love and Thunder, which obviously is easy to do if you're not a fan of Taika Waititi and some of those different things, or if you have a skewed perspective on the movie. Same thing with Ant-Man Quantumania. Finding ways to nitpick those things and say that, well, it's not good and it's not a good story and blah, 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 blah. Putting, I think, unrealistic expectatations on some of these movies beyond just, hey, we want to tell this story and we want to have fun. Do you want to go to the movie theater and have fun? Or do you want to go to the movie theater and get some kind of deep artistic expression that explains nature and art in a way that is eye-opening? Are these movies going to be that? Maybe here and there. But I would argue that you can have fun at the movies and tell a fun story and let it be escapist fare, and then occasionally interject it with some really deep ideas that make you think, without having to be so gloom and doom or droll that everything has to be sophisticated and serious for it to be worthy cinema. If art is subjective, then this is an area of art that most people some people don't like. But it's trendy to dig on Marvel, and I was susceptible to a little bit of that. I went into this movie with very low expectations, and I came out of it, again, reconvinced to not doubt Marvel and their ability for multiple reasons. From the Easter eggs, to the crossovers, to the cameos, to the story that they're telling. And the further we get into this Kang Dynasty Secret Wars thing, the more interconnected you are going to see that these things have always been. They kind of had an idea in the first three phases leading into Infinity War and Endgame, but they really hit jackpot with the Russo brothers, who were able to tie all those things together in a way that made it look like everything had always been interconnected, when in reality, you're just really bringing these characters together for one big fight and revisiting things that you'd already seen, which made it seem interconnected. But the stories that they're telling now with all these different characters and all these different universes, you're going to find out that the things that they were doing from the get-go, they had a plan from the beginning with this one. They knew where they were going, and maybe you haven't liked the way that they've rolled it out, and it seemed confusing, but I think when it all comes together, people are going to go, this was way better than we gave it credit for. I could be wrong. I hope they don't drop the ball on that, but I came out of this movie because of the quality of it, because of the fun of it, because of the things that they added to it, recommitted to not distrusting Marvel and just enjoying this ride. That's my spoiler-free review. It's a lot of fun. You'll laugh a lot. Iman Vellani steals the show. She's amazing. I like this version of Brie Larson better. She plays the character, especially with room to be a little silly rather than everything being so serious. Captain Marvel was a decent movie, but it had a lot of hype for, telling her story and being Marvel doubled down in their media presence, talking about it. It was a female-driven story. Okay, great. That's awesome. But I felt like the story took itself too seriously to be as fun as it could be. That movie didn't get fun for me until Brie Larson's character gets with Nick Fury and they start kind of bantering back and forth. This movie, the absurdness of the storyline and the things that are going on, made for the banter to be a little better, a little more lighthearted, for the three characters to play off each other, and then for Monica Rambeau's character and Carol Danvers to be able to have this this serious moment in the midst of that. For all of the haters that were saying it was choppy and it felt rushed, I thought there was no fat on this movie. They trimmed all the fat off of it. There was maybe one or two scenes that you could tell they cut enough that a little bit more dialogue there, I'm talking 30 seconds, to kind of get to the emotional point that they were getting to, may have helped a little bit. So that there's only one or two spots that felt like, oh, we got to that emotional point a little quicker than I thought we would. Or we got to this resolution a little faster than we thought we would. I thought more of the story was about the people and less about some epic fight to stop the villain. I thought they tracked that all the way through the story. And so when you got to a final battle, it didn't need to be as long as most people may have complained about it feeling short. It's a great story, and the inclusion of things like Kamala's family throughout the film, not just once or twice, right down to covering some plot points that we'll get into in our spoilery review, were really well done. And so go and see it. It's a whole lot of fun. The language is pretty tame, and the violence in terms of blood and things like that is really low key. So I think it's a good one to take your kids to. There's a whole lot of things you're really going to love about it. It's really, really funny. And so do with that what you will. This is where we're going to get into spoilers. We're going to get into all kinds of things like that. There were things in this movie that I absolutely loved. Obviously, the Marvels inspired logo at the beginning, where you highlighted all those characters. Starting off early on, you get pieces throughout the movie of Monica Rambeau's story from WandaVision. They blow through that pretty quick with some flashbacks and some other things. They have some story elements that do that. They blow through a lot of Kamala Khan's story in a very Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel TV show kind of way, with her drawing cartoons and stuff. They establish the plot point pretty early on. And then there's a couple of scenes where they go into some sci-fi spacey talk to explain what's going on, where they are transferring powers. They establish the rules really quick, that they can use their powers, but when they use their powers at the same time, that's when they swap. They do a really great montage. I thought the montage was really great, of them learning how to use their powers so that and work together well. So by the time they get to the final battle, it doesn't seem like, oh, they just happened to figure that out. They really had to work at it. The chemistry between the three of them, their different points of view on things, was really well done. I thought, as a plot device, Dar-Benn having a bangle on to be able to absorb Captain Marvel's powers, them having to transfer their powers during a fight, was a really clever way, whether it was the whole point or not, a really clever way to nerf Carol Danvers' powers, so that it wasn't just her blowing through ships and just destroying somebody like it looked like she could do with Thanos. All these different things, they found a way to nerf her power in that way, and to kind of make the rest of them feel like equals with what they could do. That they all have different abilities, and they all do different things, and everybody has a point or a purpose beyond one character being so overpowered that they can just do everything. I think it's good that you have people like that they are super powerful. I like the idea of having those characters out there, but also like that it comes with an obstacle of, we have to figure out how to write this so it feels human, so it feels relatable, so it feels like they could be just like us. They have weaknesses, those kind of different things. They might have to be more creatively done, but I think personally that's what sets aside somebody like Captain Marvel, and being able to relate to somebody like her more so than being able to relate to somebody like Superman. It never feels like he's down and out. The only time that I ever relate to Superman is when he's pretending to be Clark Kent, and that just makes me feel bad about being a human, because it's an all-powerful alien that is showing us what he thinks it's like to be a human, which is, oh, I can't handle my relationships, and nobody knows who I am, and whenever he becomes his superhero self, I mean, if I was that person, I would never pretend to be a human anymore. I would just be the superhero me all the time, because nobody can hurt me and nobody can kill me, and everybody will love me if I'm that person all the time. It's not the same. That's, to me, that's what sets apart what they're trying to do with Ms. Marvel, and having those super overpowered characters, and finding creative ways to make them relatable. I think Marvel does a really great job with, even if you don't like the particular character, even if you wish it was somebody else, whatever. I think they do a pretty good job at it. I think the directing in this movie was great. Explanations in this movie. They gave you a lot of explanations. They took you to a lot of different planets. The creativity of some of those planets. The singing planet was fantastic. I loved the little backstory where you find out Carol Danvers had to marry this guy. But the singing planet, when they start dancing, I thought was perfect for, you have some straight-laced characters that look at that like Monica Rambeau and go, this is crazy, this is weird. But then you also have somebody like Kamala, who was in love with that world and singing and dancing, and it was right in her wheelhouse. As soon as they got there, I thought, she's gonna love this planet. And she did not disappoint. It was fantastic. Getting to see in brief moments, instead of some big, throwback, Carol Danvers going back to Hala and destroying it, I thought was much better than trying to give you some big, long, oh, here, let's go ahead and do this. It did require you to pay attention to the movie, but it did not require you to have to go back and watch all that stuff. If you want the depth of it, if you want the full story, yeah, go back and watch it. But you didn't really have to. The Visions did a great job with that. I was even impressed by the wordy explanations of all the superpowered things and the sci-fi elements and how they were transferring their powers. I was glad that they did that. They're trying to close up plot points. They're trying to make it grounded and relatable. Even if you don't understand what the phrases mean, they're trying to understand it in a way that's like, okay, that's plausible. It's like, hey, we got through this, let's move on. It's not just like, take our word for it, space magic. There are times where you can suspend belief, and there are times where you have to spoon feed things to the audience. And I thought they did a great job with that. Being able to call in Valkyrie as a helper for relocating people, not only lends itself to there being more Skrulls on Earth, but Valkyrie having her place as the king of Asgard, being able to help people in that regard, I thought was a really good choice. It was a fun choice. It showed some connection there between some stories, and it opened up a lot of possibilities for some future stories there too. And if you go back and watch Love and Thunder, you'll find out that they are able to use the Bifrost in different ways now. That has nothing to do with Heimdall or his staff or building some kind of Bifrost. And so I'll let you go dive into some of that yourself, but that was one of the questions I had, and then I remembered Thor, Love and Thunder. They didn't spend a lot of time talking about the Noor dimension that they did from Ms. Marvel. You go back and watch Ms. Marvel and get some depth there, but when you saw those elements, it made sense. And so you also got a big explanation, I thought, of some things that happened in Ms. Marvel that they explained a little better in this movie, and maybe it was unintentional, but it gave me enough of an explanation to confirm some things that I had always thought, and we'll talk about that with some of the Easter eggs. The ending of this movie, the fight scene, the jump point, the use of the jump points and using those as possible places where you could jump from reality to reality, even if you don't do it out in space, that you could use something that looks like a jump point to get from reality to reality, I think probably will pop up someplace else. The idea that somehow the powers of Ms. Marvel or Kamala Khan or Monica Rambeau can somehow be utilized to get to those other realities is going to be interesting as well. I think it probably has more to do with the Bengals, and I would put my money on Kamala Khan being more of a player in that regard, and that's just judging from some of the after credit scenes and what I know about those Bengals. So I thought there's probably a lot of other things in there. Figuring out what SABER stands for finally, and I don't even have the word on me right now. It's early in the morning. I haven't remembered what that was, but it's a long phrase, and you get to find out what that is. My favorite line from the entire movie, when they are on Aldana and they are dancing, and Carol Danvers starts dancing and singing. Monica says, "What is she doing?" And Kamala Khan says, "She's respecting the flow." Best line, funniest line, best delivered line in the whole movie. The Flurkins and the Flurkin storyline with multiple Flurkins is going to be interesting. All the Flurkins are on Earth now. Whether they go back up to the space station or whether they hop off into places on Earth unknown is anybody's guess. But that was funny. It was hilarious. Right down to the playing of memory from cats. While the cats are the Flurkins are eating everyone, and they're loaded into the escape pod. And as if that wasn't good enough, they get jettisoned out of the space station, and now you have weightless cats in space. It was funny. It was hilarious. I know some people don't like the goofy Magoo things that Marvel does, but here's the thing. They can do it, and most people will love it. It will be silly and goofy and fun. And I will tell you, from 15 minutes into this movie, I wanted to go back and watch it again. I knew I was going to love it. I was all in. It was fun. It was a good story. It was put together well. There's a whole lot there to dissect. There's a whole lot there to look at, and other worlds and other characters and things that just made the world deeper and gave Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan a deeper, bigger story in a way that I thought was really well done. The plot points and the discussions about how Kamala as a teenager was able to go and do these things with her parents' approval, I thought continuing to bring those elements in there to make it seem realistic, rather than her parents just going, "Oh, well, I guess we'll just wait around until Kamala comes back," were well done, well placed. And if they were going to, they could have easily trimmed some of that stuff, but leaving that in there grounded the movie and made you feel like, to be able to see it from her eyes, to feel for her, and especially see her parents be the characters that they are. I think her parents are the most parenty parents in the whole MCU, and they do a really great job of playing that off and being protective of her, but also being encouraging and accepting of her powers. Was really cool moments. Going to be interesting to see where they move forward from there. The Young Avengers tease at the end. The cameo with Kate Bishop, and Lucky the Pizza Dog. Let's not forget about Lucky the Pizza Dog. Right down to Kamala using the same lines that Nick Fury uses on Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man, all the way back at the beginning of the MCU. That leads us into our Easter eggs, which will include a discussion of the after credit scene. Easter eggs there, like I said, Kamala Khan uses some of the same lines on Kate Bishop that Nick Fury uses on Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man. You're part of a bigger world, you just don't know it yet. I'm putting together a team. All of those different things, she kind of combines all of those things. The Young Avengers tease there, we're talking about Isaiah Bradley's grandson. We're talking about Kamala Khan, Kate Bishop, possibly Yelena Belova, and then America Chavez. And then also Wiccan and Speed, Wanda's children, Wanda and Vision's children. There's a lot of possibilities there for people that could be part of that group, people that they come across. And so they're finally giving you a tease for that, and it was a great place to put it in. Honestly, I went into this thinking this is going to be a standalone movie, and it's not gonna have the weight of some of these other movies. Even though Quantumania felt like a big movie, it felt like a legend or an origin story for Kang the Conqueror, because you got to see him before he's at his full power. that movie didn't have as big of an implication to the rest of the Marvel Universe as this movie did with some of its scenes and some of the things that it told you. Displacing some Skrulls, the Kree Empire being reborn with their new son. All of those different elements being put together in addition to this Young Avengers teaser and the after credits teaser were monumental Marvel moments. And I will admit, I thought that Marvel was playing us when they did the teaser trailers that said, see what happens next and see the next phase, the beginning of the next part of the MCU. I thought, they're just trying to rope us in to this movie, and it couldn't have been farther from the truth. I will not distrust Marvel again. I will give them their due, and I will go and watch wholeheartedly, even if the story might fall flat. They know what they're doing. And there was a lot of these elements in this movie that I think are going to be parsed for a little while. The bangles, you get some explanations there. Now, side note here, we're not going to go through some of these Easter eggs. There's all kinds of Easter eggs about the jump ships and the names of the planets. There's a planet called MB418. The number on the side of Carol Danvers' ship is LS-197. I am sure they have something to do with a comic book or some other kind of thing. You guys can dig into that. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I want to talk about the bangles real quick because when Miss Marvel came out, I had a real problem with the way they tackled time travel at one point in that story. They created this loop in Miss Marvel where the bangle thrusts Kamala back in time to India in the 1920s or the 1940s, and she is the instigator of a legend that has been passed down through her family, where her great-grandmother her grandmother got separated from her great-grandmother. Her grandmother was a kid at the time, and the only way she found her way back was with these mystical, magical, sparkly steps, which turn out to be Kamala Khan getting her young grandmother back to her great-grandmother, her mother. I had a problem with that because the Infinity War time rules, the in-game time rules, did not apply to that. That somebody could go back in time and do something that affected their future in a way that, it was just always supposed to happen. The multiverse hadn't been blown wide open yet, or even if it had, you hadn't seen some of these things happen yet, especially in all that kind of stuff. We can talk about TVA stuff and things happening outside of time at the exact same time. Either way, something in our past, in our timeline, affecting something in the future of our timeline, and it never having a starting point that it was always supposed to be Kamala, really rubbed me the wrong way. And they actually explain it in this movie when Kamala says, because clearly she's been thinking about it, the bangle says that it was meant for her, that it was called for her, that it's written, that the bangles call to each other. And since Kamala's great-grandmother had a bangle on, even though it was the same one, Kamala's grandmother had a bangle on in 1940, whatever, and Kamala has a bangle on in 2023, 2025, whenever it happened. It wouldn't matter who was wearing the bangle whenever her great-grandmother puts the blessing or calls out to the bangle. It would have called through anybody that was wearing it. It had more to do with the bangle and nothing to do with the fact that it was Kamala. The only thing that Kamala had to do with it when we saw it was that the sparkly steps. That could have been a myth, that could have been a story, and it just inspired Kamala to do what she did. It could have been written off in some other way, but what I'm saying is it gave us a starting point to say that these bangles have some power that transcends or gives you a starting point for something that happened that was not necessarily a time loop or time related and had more to do with the bangles than it did with any one person. I know I stressed that too much and you might disagree with me, but I think that's important moving forward because they have explained over and over and over again that you have your own perspective of time, but it's not the correct view of time. That just because things seem linear to you, past, present, future, does not mean that that's how they work for everybody. And you have to remember that if you go back to your past, that past is now your future, because you are going to it. Your time is linear as you perceive it. But for everybody else, they're perceiving their time as linear as well, which means it's its own thread of time. And you interacting with it does not change it any more than anything else. And that they've explained that in a bunch of different ways. And I think that's important with the way they're framing all this multiverse stuff. Don't get it twisted so that you don't get confused. And I think they're very careful about those things. And I was really grateful that they explained the bangles a little bit, because I think that's going to have an effect on what Kamala does later on when she uses both of the bangles. In terms of opening portals to other universes, other realities, all those different things. The fact that they called them quantum bangles, all of those things were really great, and the explanations, the name of Saber, the Flurkin storyline is a big one in the Captain Marvel universe. All these different Flurkins, go and search that out for yourself. It has a lot of implications, and you can play those out for yourself. But in terms of Easter eggs, those are the biggest ones I saw. The different planets they went to, the Skrulls, the different leaders of the Skrulls, the Kree still being out there. All of these things really play into Secret Wars a lot more than they play into Kang Dynasty type stuff. And you saw a lot of pieces of that coming out. And I think these different groups like the Young Avengers, the Marvels, the Kree, the Skrulls, all these different elements are going to be a massive, massive movie in Secret Wars after Kang Dynasty. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how they do all that, and then moving into things like the Fantastic Four, and as we talk about our after credit scene, the X-Men. When Monica flew through that portal, not only did she give me Storm vibes, which she's not going to be Storm, but there's another reality out there. When I realized she was going to be stuck in another reality, I leaned over to my wife and I said, I know what the bonus scene is going to be. I could not have anticipated who the cameo was going to be, but it did not disappoint. Monica wakes up in a bed, similar to the way she woke up after the blip to find out that her mother had passed away, to see her mother sitting in a chair next to her, only to find out that this version of Maria Rambeau does not know who she is. She's also dressed up in a uniform, which most people take to mean that she is the superhero binary. You should probably look into that as well. And when she realizes that she is not her mother, she doesn't know who she is, you hear a voice that is instantly recognizable if you've watched any of these comics, any of the X-Men movies, to see that Hank McCoy, played by Kelsey Grammer, in the room as a doctor, talking about who is she, where did she come from. You even see the X-Men door in the background, signifying that she is at the X-Men compound, that she is at Xavier's school perhaps, and that he even drops that Charles wants to see her. Fantastic, excellent. We've gotten hints of it in the Miss Marvel's TV show. Kamala's friend Bruno tells her that she has something mutated about her genes. We know from the writer of Miss Marvel, of the comic, that because of some inhuman things, they always wanted her to be a mutant, an X-Man, but they settled for her being an Inhuman because of some rights issues and things like that. All of those things coming together. We've had some hints at X-Men and mutants out there. Namor calls himself a mutant, perhaps one of the first mutants, given how old he is. I'm sure we can get into Apocalypse and all these other kind of things like that. But as far as the MCU is concerned, those are the only references we've had thus far, aside from some little Easter eggs that were like, oh, they might be talking about. No, I'm talking about direct. We are talking about mutants, X-Men moving forward. We're sowing seeds here. This was your evidence that the X-Men are out there. They're in another universe, I imagine, with Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty and all these different things. As the multiverse starts opening up, that's how you're going to find these people. And it keeps you, I like it this way. Some people may not like it this way. I think it's an interesting way to go on it. It keeps you from having to have this evolution on Earth, or to tell the same story that you've told before, which is just like the Skrull story, or just like the Eternals and the Celestials. They've always been here. They've just been in hiding. A school for gifted young people is very, very hard to hide on Earth. Maybe the mutants are in hiding, but maybe there's only a few of them. Maybe something happened in our universe that didn't allow them to come to be. Or maybe they come to be way in the future, but it's already happened someplace else. That's okay. I like having the different stories, and our universe doesn't always have to be the one telling the main story. It can come from someplace else. I like that idea. It allows you to be able to tell some standalone stories in ways that don't rely on you to have to introduce and involve everybody. And it means you can tell X-Men stories without having to involve all the Avengers. Or you can bring them in whenever you want to. That's the beauty of these multiverse stories, and I don't think it dilutes or takes away from the depth and the impact of these stories, because it certainly didn't with this after credits scene. I love this movie. Would I put it in the top 10 of Marvel movies? No. I would put the after credits scene in my top 3 for sure. I don't know that there are so many good Marvel movies to pick from. As a fun movie, as an interesting movie, I've got Ant-Man in my top 10. The Marvels might make my top 10 in that regard, but if you're talking about comparing it to something like Endgame, Infinity War, Guardians 3, the first Guardians movie, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, No Way Home, Wakanda Forever, Black Panther, it's going to get pushed down the list, but it's because you're comparing 8s and 9s against 8s and 9s out of 10. So curious what you guys think about it. I know some people won't like it just because it's different, because it's not the characters that they've always loved, and it is what it is. Please like and subscribe. We are on our way to 200 subscribers and well beyond. We need your help to get there. Hit the notification bell, share this thing all across the multiverse. And as always, check out some of our other videos. We got a multiverse explanation. We've got an explanation of the finale of Loki Season 2. And as always, guys, when the next one drops, we'll catch you right back here. Later.